But anyway, the second half, because I want to talk about a little bit about entrepreneurship and my experience of it, and share my story and what I've learned from it. Because I never actually intended to become an entrepreneur. I never thought it would be an option even for me. Actually, when I was in high school, I looked like this. I was a hippie. You know, I had dreadlocks and life was great. And so it was very kind of, nobody would have been able to predict that I would end up where I'm right now. And maybe also because I didn't have any entrepreneurs in my close circles. I didn't know what it's like. If I'm actually honest, we had some entrepreneurs when I was in high school, lecturing about what it's like, and and I skipped those lectures because I was in a music high school. I had the key to the room where the piano was, so I just thought, I'm gonna play for an hour. That's much better because it doesn't help me at all. I will never become an entrepreneur. So if you think the same way, never say never. Anyway, how did where does my story start? One thing that I was kind of, very curious about, something I wanted, something I liked, was music. And music theory, if you have ever played any instrument, you know that music theory sucks. It's a lot of things to remember by heart. It's just complicated. This kind of gives you an idea. This is a music theory cheat poster. So if you don't remember everything, you can cheat and check from here. So it's not kind of something for a 10-year-old, right? So this was a challenge. I wanted to become a composer. I wanted to become the next Sibelius, and I was like, I actually, when I had the dreadlocks, I went to a forest and I climbed a tree and I composed music, and then I was like this very, in my own bubble. But I recognized that if I want to become a composer, I need to know music theory. It's like grammar. If I want to write, I need to know the grammatics. So this was just something I had to do. And I was 15 when I was kind of frustrated. I was really almost angry. It doesn't make sense to me. And I was studying music theory in a library one afternoon when I thought, could I explain the whole thing in a simpler way? It's naive to even think. I was 15. I was like, could I change the history of music? But when you are that age, you, in a good way, are unrealistic. I didn't know much. I didn't know that it's something you shouldn't even think about. Nobody said that it's impossible. So I give it a go. I start to think, how would that system work? Well, we have 12 notes in music. And when I was in the library, I glanced at the clock. I was like, wait a minute, there's 12 numbers in a clock. Normally we put music from left to right, from down to up, or south to north, how you say it. And I was like, why? Could music be in a spiral, in a wave, in an Excel, or in a clock? And I just thought, well, let's see what happens. And I put the notes into the clock, and I created this music clock. I call it in Finnish sävelkello. And I recognized that, wait a minute, it's much easier to explain the relationship between notes, chords and scales and intervals, with this type of visual way. When you make things visual, it helps to understand how it kind of works. So I started to develop all kinds of prototypes. I started to build these out of cardboard, and I was completely blown away of how actually cool. It's simple mathematics at the end of the day, but you just have to take it from one domain to another. This is how it works, just simply. So there are these stencils or discs that are for different scales. This is for major scale. So when you put number 1 to G, you have G major scale. So you can read the notes in the clock, right? When you go clockwise. So whatever note you rotate the disc to, you find the right notes for that scale. And then you have blues and minor and different scales. Then I figured out, wait a minute, I could roll this thing on a piano keyboard. So every note always touches the corresponding key. And now if you want to learn to play the scale with a piano, you just put the yellow thing there and it tells you which keys to press down. So no matter how difficult the scale is, you could just go and start jamming right away. And this is what I wanted to do because I wanted to play, I wanted to make music, I wanted to enjoy music, not like with paper and pen make these like exercises. So it kind of helped me to really do what I wanted. And for 2 years, I didn't kind of tell anybody about it because it was like it helped myself and it was like the tool. I never thought it would become a product or anything. I sent it to a couple of composers and they said, well, it's fine, but nobody kind of pushed me forward. I once actually did call ely-keskus. I was like, hey, I have this great invention. It might help other people as well. And they said, well, let's talk in a couple of years, go back to school, So nothing really happened. But in high school, I think I was in 2nd or 3rd grade, I started a company. And I didn't know anything about anything, pretty much. But I started the company and I learned by doing. I did all the mistakes you can do or make. But we started building these. We started to give them to schools, to different kind of, educational institutions. We built an app. We did all kinds of things. And for a while, it seemed like, okay, this is my future. I'm going to do this forever. I went to study in Sibelius Academy, composition. I thought, like, this is my path. But as I got into the circles of like startups and companies and technology, I got interested in the future because I recognized this is a special time we live in. We are like, I wanted to know more about like the future, the technology. So I applied to study in Silicon Valley. I mentioned NASA. I was there for like half a year, and we went through like the grand challenges that the UN sustainable goals and the UN has set. We went through like exponential technologies, like very kind of American way of talking about the future. But anyway, I met a person who was also passionate about education. Her name was Lala, and she was from Myanmar, Southeast Asia. And I was from Finland. She was from Myanmar. We thought that, well, Finland one of the best, yay. Myanmar one of the worst. Could we collaborate? Could we do something together? And we started a non-profit. We thought there are a lot of teachers around the world who never get to see anything else than their own system. And it might be very old-fashioned, like in Myanmar, they still hit you with a stick, and it's very kind of army-style pedagogics. So we thought we can't fly them to different parts of the world. We cannot fly an expert to the country because it doesn't scale. We thought, what if we created a virtual reality experience from them? So we started to film classrooms in Silicon Valley in Finland, and the teachers in Myanmar put the goggles on and they jumped into a Finnish classroom, and they was like, oh, this is how you do it. Oh, it's very different from our kind of way of doing. It's very effective. And the next day they applied new kind of teaching models, new pedagogics, and it seemed fine, all seemed fine, but again, it's a developing nation. And we faced some problems, the data was not really good enough and all kinds of things. We decided to pivot to augmented reality. So I spent some time in Myanmar. We kind of built the company forward, and we wanted to address like young people. We made different kinds of apps with augmented reality. So how it works. For example, this is ABC for kids. We have these cards. You can scan it, and then you see there are different kinds of games. And just that kind of, we figured out that like making new books is a very slow way to bring about change, especially in Myanmar. It's expensive and it doesn't really work. But they have just gotten access to internet, and they have mobile phones, smartphones. So we figured out this would be a much more effective way to give them new, better options. For example, if you want to know or scan the periodic table in chemistry, it shows you in 3D. So the atomic mass, the different kind of features there are. And I mean, we've all learned it 2D, the table. But now you actually get to kind of understand like how has it been built. And for example, the heart, you can really rotate it. You can see every detail. When you scroll down, there's a link to Wikipedia, a link to YouTube. You can make a couple of games. So this, again, for a while seemed like, oh, this is my life. I'm going to be doing this forever. And it really taught me a lot being an entrepreneur in a developing country. But I still figured out, okay, I want to come back to home. And I got here and I started to give keynotes and talk about my experience. Like Silicon Valley and Myanmar are two extremes in a way. So I started to talk, I started to write a couple of books, and now I've been doing this for a couple of years. So just wanted to kind of show you that for somebody who didn't in any way consider entrepreneurship as kind of possibility, 3 companies later, 3 very different types of things later, I could have never kind of imagined this. So you just have to be open. I never had been in Asia when I flew there to start a company. Like, you have to be a bit, not stupid, but take the step, take the leap of faith, and not like think, well, what if I fail? What if something happens? What if I'm not good enough? Like, all these things, like, we filter ourselves a lot, and then we don't even try. So many times I get asked, what would I tell my younger self? Like, if I was now, let's say, back in high school, what would you tell that Perttu? And the answer is nothing. Because I don't believe in shortcuts. Like, everything needed to happen in order for me to learn certain things, right? And I'm happy where I'm now. So yes, everything wasn't easy and nice, but again, I learned it the right way, I think. So in this way, there are no shortcuts. But I want to give you something. Maybe if you want to write them down or take a photo, something I've learned. So 5 do's and 5 don'ts. Something that this journey has taught me. So first, this I learned quite early. You have to know your values. What this means is that you have to make a lot of decisions in your life, and especially as an entrepreneur, like every day, there are some things to kind of ponder, some things to make a decision of. Now, it's easier to make a decision when you know what's important to you. When you have 2 options that you don't know what to do, it's usually because you don't know what is kind of like which one is more important to you. So when you have kind of crystallized, okay, this is what I want to do, and it's easy to grab an option. So that really kind of helps in everyday life. Find what you love and let it kill you. What does this mean? I mean, of course, music clock, Sävelkellä, was a very important thing for me. I was 15, 16, and I had created something, and it helped other people, and I built my identity, to it, because the first time somebody took me seriously, I wasn't just a kid that needs to be educated, but rather I had something to offer. It was wonderful. So it got very important to me. And what happens when you get stuck in whatever you produce, your essay, your project, if somebody criticizes the product, of course, you feel like, oh, I'm bad. I suck, I can't do it. Like, you take it personally. And I realized that I should not fall in love with the solution, like my own ingenious invention, but rather the problem, like music theory, education, like that's the thing. So let what you love kind of kill you. Focus on what really, actually this is the second thing, focus on what deserves your attention. So not all the noise, not everything should kind of get you. So what is really, where do you want to put your time, your money, your eyes? I mean, if you look a lot of Netflix series and movies, what will you become as an adult? A very good Netflix movie watcher. Like, that's where it goes. That's kind of what you strengthen. If you look or read a lot of Yellow Pages and Hömpä, you will become like expert in those. I'm not saying it's wrong, but if you do one thing and you want another, like, you get disappointed because you didn't do well in something, but if you actually never put the effort, can you really be that disappointed? Like, we need to kind of, what we give our time to, that's what we want, that's what we value. So be very kind of careful, what deserves your attention? Like, okay, again, the phone, is that what you want your life to be about? Like, really, time management, I guess that's the word. If opportunity doesn't knock, build a door. Now, obviously, things don't happen. Like, you have to do something to get started. There's this story about Michelangelo when he created or made the big statue of David. I think is it in Verona, or anyway in Italy. It's like this beautiful, incredibly aesthetic statue. He was asked, like, how were you able to create something so divine, so magnificent? And the story goes that he said, well, it was very easy. Because, when I was, making the statue, I just took all the things out that were not David. And then at the end of the day, there it is, right? So sometimes the philosophy or taking things out that are not you is actually a good way to get started. So if you do something and let's say a summer job, and you're like, oh, I hate that job, right? It's a good thing because now you know not to do that same thing again. So you just took a huge part away. And when you do enough or many things that don't kind of serve you or don't feel the right thing for you, you narrow your kind of what is left, like what is really the core, what is for you. So don't think that it was a disappointment, it's a mistake, or rather, it's a great thing that I learned this lesson. So if an opportunity doesn't knock, build or start with something. Get going. Make emotions work for you instead of being against you. It was a roller coaster. Being an entrepreneur, being responsible for somebody else's money without any kind of real knowledge of business and how it works, and it's stressful and it's intense. And at some point, I guess I just had to learn that the emotions that you get throughout the day, they can make life miserable and very difficult and feels like you can do anything. But rather, when something irritates or is disturbing or something negative, just stop for a moment to ask, why is this emotion arising? Like, where does this come from? Because I don't want this again. So I might take this into consideration and do something different the next time. So try to learn from it. So the emotions, all of them, work for you for something better in the future, rather than just make everything difficult. So really pay attention to this message. The emotion is trying to teach you something. It might be basic to you, I don't know, but for me at that time I was like, whoa, incredible. Okay, 5 don'ts. Don't waste a good crisis. When shit hits the fan, something bad happens, don't try to just get back to it and nothing happened, I'm good. You have to process it obviously, but the crisis happened for a reason. Don't waste that kind of opportunity to learn something so that you don't just create a crisis again. Don't look for inspiration, look for irritation. Like many people kind of approach future like, oh, what would I want to, what is like, what motive, like, I was not motivated by music theory. Like I hated it. I thought I need to fix it. World is not ready. This sucks. Like if you don't like something, if you really kind of these emotions arise, it means that you care about it. You care about it. You have some kind of connection to it. So rather than like waiting for like what would be nice, ask for like what is not working. What should be changed? What should be different? And start with that. You obviously seem to care for it. Don't let schooling get in the way of your education. Now, obviously, I wasn't taught any of the kind of skills. Back in the day, we didn't have any courses on entrepreneurship, for example, in high school. And at some point, I realized that, there's a lot that was actually never taught at school, but it doesn't mean that I should not know it. So there's a lot of things that I'm responsible of figuring out by myself. Like there's a certain limit of like age when you can blame everything like your parents. Like, they didn't like, but at some point like that's not valid anymore. You have to be in charge. You have to actually take the lead. And also there's this quote that goes to Aristotle, I think, but it's not like I didn't find the exact fact like the source material. But it goes that if you teach head without teaching the heart, it's not education at all. And I think it's on point, at least a little bit. We focus a lot in the head, obviously, but the heart, we learn everywhere. Don't let school get in the way of education. You learn everywhere. Okay, don't let money get in the way of what is really important. Now, in Silicon Valley, I was so frustrating. Like there were people who were like, oh yeah, we're building this like dating app for dogs. Like it's a huge potential, a lot of money. And I was like, you are intelligent and you have a lot of money and whatnot, but like, even though yes, there's a lot of maybe money involved, is it important? Do we need a dating app for dogs? and there are other examples as well, but really kind of if you start doing something, you commit to it. It might take, let's say, 10 or 20 years of your life. It's a big investment. So is it important? Is it what you want to give your time and effort to? Is it actually worth your time? So really ponder those things. Of course, money, it's an important aspect to take in consideration as well. But first you need to feel that it's important what you do. Don't cling to a mistake just because you spend a lot of time making it. I mean, it's easy to say, but obviously when it feels like, oh, I wasted like so much money or time, or don't let another 5 years kind of go into waste because of that. Like, it's never too like, I don't want to say that it's never, like sometimes we have this idea that never give up, right? And that's stupidity, right? There is a moment, there's a point where actually it's wiser to really ask yourself, yes, it took a lot of time, but I don't want to let that continue forever. Now, one more thing, one last thought I want to give to you is a lesson I learned actually from Las Vegas, but it's all about like what gets under our skin. Like how do we think about like what success is and who is. Well, you get the idea when I explain it. So when I went to a casino for the first time, I was. It's an out of this world experience because we don't have anything like that in Finland. The big rooms and halls and all the slot machines, the like sounds, the lights, everything it's like you get a headache. The stimuli, it's incredible. So when I entered the casino and I was like blown away of the whole like reality, I stopped for a moment to listen because I never had thought like what is the kind of soundscape like in a casino. So what do you think you hear in a casino? What sounds are there in a casino? Well, like cling, clang, and jackpot and bring and all these like special sounds. Where do those sounds come from? Well, from the slot machines that succeed, like that win something, like the winning machines. What sounds come from the losing machines? Nothing, right? When I was in the hall and I looked around, I was like, I know deep in my heart that most people lose all their money here. But everything I can sense, like all the things that I hear, tells me about getting rich, making it, being successful. Like I see a lot of examples all the time of people making it. And that's counterintuitive. Like what I know is completely opposite of what I see around me. Which one should I believe? Like this or, this. And I kind of realized that there is in many areas of life, there is this dynamic of loud minority and silent majority. The like few machines, few people, they kind of fill the space. They create a normal, it seems like it's very common. Whereas actually the silent majority is completely the opposite. Like, for example, entrepreneurship or Silicon Valley or whatever can be like this. Like you hear the success stories. You hear the people making like incredible stories and examples. And whereas the reality is more like a graveyard for companies. Like, that's statistics. Like most people don't actually make it. Nothing special here. The same thing with media. When I open a news outlet, I hear like the ends of the spectrum, like the people who are like something very special happened and it's worth of mentioning, and then maybe some like opposite end. Now why is this important to note the dynamic? When you go to social media, you go to a casino, right? Because when you are on a social media scroll, what do you see? Like what sounds do you hear? Like in casino, the winning machines, right? Like the perfect photos from the vacation and the beautiful lunch or dinner setups and like all the like selected best parts of like the winning moments The moments we were like really on top of it. And now when we scroll the social media for a while, and when we forget the dynamic, we start to kind of think that it's normal. Like if I go to a casino and start to expect that, oh, all these people are winning, I'm going to win as well. What do you think happens? I get very disappointed when I find out that it didn't happen. I might even feel that it's wrong. The system is against me. I'm like, this is, you know, I think that it's somehow against the odds or something, whereas it's actually exactly what was supposed to happen, but my expectations, really, I created the problem for myself because I didn't pay attention to what makes me think something is normal or not, right? So when you go on social media and you're like, oh, everybody's having such incredible time in life, and look at those, and oh, I'm alone, there's nothing special in my life. And of course, you know, you start to feel miserable. Like but that's the silent majority. Nobody posts about the basic stuff, the normal life. So I guess going forward, just pay attention to this dynamic, whatever the subject is. When something brings about, let's say, I don't know, family life, entrepreneurship, politics, education, whatever it is, just ask, does this represent what I think is the silent majority, or does this lead a bit off? How can I make sure that when I form an opinion or when I create expectations for life, for studies, for everything, I'm actually not impacted by loud minority. So it's some risk management in a way for future, so that we don't kind of think too much in a wrong way, right? So that we get disappointed for nothing. So, but maybe as a last point, many people think that future is somehow just something that happens, you know, like a wave that uncontrollably comes over us and we just take it as it is. We don't have a say. But it's nothing out of our control in a way. Like it's only the decisions, the things we do that affect tomorrow. So in a way, you don't have to kind of be a victim of what happens in the world. You can be much more kind of active. You can be part of it. When I was here, in Finland, before I went to my travels, I thought that, you know, there's nothing I can do, obviously, because like, who am I to even imagine or dream about, you know, doing anything that changes the world? Those people far away, the big bosses in America or wherever, those have, you know, power. But when I went there, I was like, I'm not the stupidest person in the room. Like, they are normal, like moms and dads. They're just like me. There's nothing special about them. And I saw that, oh, well, like they don't just ponder. They are actually doing something. Like there's no reason why I couldn't also do something like them. Like there's nothing that, like I just needed to go there to kind of understand it. But I want to kind of give you the same, hopefully, empowering thought that it's not impossible to actually change the course, not only your own life, but, you know, others' life as well. So thank you very much, and hope we see each other again. All the best for the fall. Thank you.